There exists a deeply toxic falsehood that has infiltrated the consciousness of this generation. A lie so pervasive, so seemingly reasonable, that millions of people accept it as absolute truth without question. This deception didn't arrive suddenly. It crept in gradually, spread through social media posts, self-help seminars, productivity podcasts, and late-night comparison spirals on Instagram. It has become the default explanation for why dreams remain unfulfilled, why potential stays dormant, why another year passes without meaningful progress. This lie whispers in your ear every morning when you hit the snooze button for the third time. It echoes in your mind every evening when you review the day and realize you accomplished nothing of significance. It screams at you when you see others succeeding while you remain stuck in place. The lie is, you are in.
Let's trace the pathetic cycle that billions of people repeat day after day with religious consistency. It all starts in the morning, the awakening to inadequacy. Your eyes open, before your feet hit the floor, before you've taken a conscious breath, your hand has already reached for your phone. It's automatic, almost involuntary. The screen glows to life, and you begin the scroll. Instagram stories of people already at the gym, LinkedIn posts about someone's promotion, Twitter threads about productivity systems, YouTube thumbnails promising transformation in 30 days. You're not even fully awake, and already you're consuming the curated highlight reels of other people's lives. Then comes the mid-morning, the consumption binge. You continue scrolling through breakfast, motivational quotes over sunset photos, success stories, before and after transformations, how I made 6 figures videos, podcasts about morning routines of billionaires, articles about the science of habit formation. With each piece of content, you feel something stirring inside. It's a mixture of inspiration and shame. Inspiration because these stories prove transformation is possible. Shame because you're not experiencing that transformation yourself. In the afternoon, you get a burst of false energy. Then it happens. You watch a particularly powerful video. The speaker is dynamic, charismatic, intense. They're talking directly to you, it seems. They understand your pain. They've been where you are, and they've found the way out. Suddenly, adrenaline floods your system. Your heart rate increases. You feel something you haven't felt in weeks. Hope. This is it. This is the answer. This time will be different. By evening, you are in the goal-setting high. Riding this wave of borrowed energy, you make declarations, you write down goals, you create a new schedule, you download a productivity app, you commit to waking up at 5 a.m., you promise yourself this is the beginning of the new you. For those few hours, you genuinely believe it. The possibility feels real. Tomorrow, you tell yourself, everything changes. 3 days later, you inevitably crash. But by day 3, the borrowed energy has evaporated. The alarm goes off at 5 a.m. and you hit snooze. The workout plan sits abandoned. The business idea remains just that, an idea. The goal list is already mocking you from the corner of your desk. And the cycle begins again. Back to scrolling, back to consuming, back to seeking that next hit of motivation that will finally be the one that sticks. Then comes the fatal assumption. Here's where the lie completes its work. You interpret this crash, this return to baseline, as confirmation of the original accusation. See, the voice in your head says, you are lazy, you are broken, you lack what it takes. And so you assume the problem is energy depletion. You think to yourself, I need a stronger dose, a better speaker, a more powerful video, a more dramatic story, something to really light the fire this time. You become a motivation junkie, endlessly chasing the next fix, never realizing you're addicted to a substance that can never satisfy the real hunger. In this video, we are going to attempt to interrupt this toxic cycle with a truth that might initially frustrate you, but will ultimately free you from this never-ending cycle. For starters, you do not need more motivation. Read that again. Let it sink in. Let it challenge the assumption you've been operating under for months or years. The reason your life isn't changing, the reason you're stuck in repetitive patterns, the reason your potential remains locked away, it has nothing to do with your energy levels. You are not suffering from a lack of energy. You are suffering from a lack of clarity. This is the game-changing distinction that the entire self-help industry fails to make. They keep selling you energy in the form of hype, excitement, emotional manipulation, and temporary inspiration. But energy without direction is just chaos. It's like pouring gasoline on the ground instead of in an engine. Lots of power, but completely wasted. The real enemy revealed. Confusion is the enemy of execution, not laziness, not lack of willpower, not insufficient motivation. Confusion. When you don't have absolute clarity about where you're going, why you're going there, and what the next step is, your mind defaults to paralysis. It's not a character defect, it's a neurological feature. Your brain is designed to conserve energy when faced with uncertainty. Ambiguity triggers the stress response, and prolonged stress leads to shutdown. Think about it through this analogy. When the path is dark, the traveler stops walking, not because he is lazy, but because he is blind. Imagine you're walking through a forest on a clear trail in daylight. You make steady progress. You don't need to psych yourself up. You don't need a motivational speaker shouting in your ear. You simply walk because the path is obvious. Now imagine that same forest at midnight with no flashlight. The trail has disappeared into blackness. You can't see 2 feet in front of you. There might be cliffs. There might be predators. There might be nothing but safe ground, but you can't tell. What do? You stop. Not because you're lazy, not because you lack motivation, but because continuing forward when you can't see is dangerous and foolish. This is exactly what happens when you lack clarity in life. Your goals are vague, your path is undefined, your next step is unclear, and so you freeze, you distract yourself, you scroll, you consume, you wait for someone to turn on the light. But here's the problem. No amount of motivational content will illuminate the path. Motivation might give you the courage to take a step, but if you still don't know which direction to step, you'll either stand still or wander in circles. This isn't new information. This truth isn't a modern discovery from neuroscience or psychology. The Bible warned us about this principle thousands of years before the internet age, before smartphones, before the attention economy was designed to profit from our confusion. 1 Corinthians 14:33 tells us, "For God is not the author of confusion, but of peace." Pause and let the weight of that verse settle on you. God is not the author of confusion, which means confusion has a different author. When your life feels chaotic, fragmented, directionless, scattered, that is not God's design for you. That is not His plan. That is not His will. Confusion is a sign you've drifted from divine alignment. It's evidence you're operating outside the system you were designed to function within. If your life feels chaotic, if your mind feels like a browser with 50 tabs open, you are operating outside of God's design. You are operating in entropy. the natural tendency of all systems to move toward disorder when not actively maintained. Your mental state right now, with 17 unfinished projects, 43 ideas you've never executed, goals you set and forgot, plans you abandoned, commitments you broke to yourself. This isn't who you are. This is what happens when you live without clarity.
Today we declare war. Today the drift ends. Enough. Enough scrolling for answers while your life slips away. Enough consuming content while producing nothing. Enough waiting for motivation while clarity sits available. Enough blaming yourself for lacking energy when you lack vision. Today, we are going to stop the drift. The drift is that slow, almost imperceptible slide into mediocrity. It's death by 1,000 small compromises. It's the slow accumulation of wasted days that suddenly becomes a wasted decade. The drift is comfortable, gradual, and absolutely lethal to your destiny. But today, we plant our feet, we draw a line, we say no more to the current that's been pulling us away from purpose. We are going to dismantle the distractions that are eating your destiny. Not manage them, not minimize them, dismantle them. Because here's what you need to understand. The distractions in your life aren't random. They're not accidental. They're not neutral. They are specifically designed to eat your attention, which is your most valuable resource. Your attention is your destiny in seed form. Where your attention goes, your life follows. The apps on your phone are engineered by teams of PhDs in behavioral psychology, whose job is to keep you engaged. The algorithm is optimized to serve you content that triggers emotional responses strong enough to keep you scrolling. The entire digital ecosystem is built to harvest your attention and convert it to profit. And every minute they harvest is a minute stolen from your actual purpose. We are going to identify every attention thief in your life and eliminate it with surgical precision. But we're not just removing, we are replacing. We are going to replace the cheap dopamine of motivation with the structural steel of vision. Motivation is cotton candy, sweet, appealing, but lacking any nutritional value. It gives you a quick sugar high followed by a crash. It's based entirely on emotion, which means it's completely unreliable. Emotion is a terrible master and an even worse foundation for building a life. Vision is different. Vision is structural steel. It's the framework that holds up skyscrapers during earthquakes. It doesn't depend on how you feel on a given day. It doesn't need to be replenished every 72 hours. It provides direction regardless of circumstance. Proverbs 4:25-27 commands us, "Let your eyes look straight ahead. Fix your gaze directly before you. Give careful thought to the paths for your feet, and be steadfast in all your ways. Do not turn to the right or to the left. Keep your foot from evil." The wisdom here is profound. Distraction isn't just inconvenient, it's dangerous. Every time you turn from your path to chase a shiny object, investigate a new opportunity, or compare yourself to someone else's journey, you're stepping toward destruction. Not because those things are inherently evil, but because they're not your path, and walking someone else's path while abandoning your own is a form of self-destruction.
What you're about to experience is not entertainment. This is not another piece of content to consume and forget. This is not motivation to feel good for 3 days. For the next 2 hours, we are not just going to learn, we are going to unlearn.
Learning is the process of adding new information to existing structures. Unlearning is the more difficult work of dismantling false structures that are actively harming you. You've learned that you're lazy. We're going to unlearn that lie. You've learned that motivation is the key. We're going to unlearn that deception. You've learned that more consumption leads to transformation. We're going to unlearn that fantasy. This will be uncomfortable. Unlearning always is, because you've built parts of your identity around these false beliefs. You've explained your failures using these frameworks. You've excused your stagnation with these narratives. When we dismantle them, you'll experience cognitive dissonance, the uncomfortable feeling of holding two contradictory ideas simultaneously. Your old self will resist. Your ego will defend its territory. Good. That resistance is proof we're operating on the right patient. We are going to perform surgery on your focus. Surgery requires precision. It requires cutting away diseased tissue while preserving healthy tissue. It requires the right tools, the right technique, and the willingness to endure temporary pain for long-term healing. Your focus is currently diseased. It's infected with distraction, constantly pulled in multiple directions, fragmentation, unable to sustain attention on one thing, comparison, measuring yourself against others instead of your own standard, consumption addiction, endlessly taking in without ever producing, decision fatigue, overwhelmed by options, paralyzed by choices. We're going to cut out each infection, sterilize the wound, and rebuild your capacity for laser-focused attention. This isn't a metaphor. This is actual transformation of your neural pathways. This is retraining your brain's reward systems. This is creating new habits at the neurological level. We are going to...
Let me ask you a question that might cut deeper than you expect. Why do you feel stuck? No, really. Think about it for a moment. Why is it that when you lie in bed at night, staring at the ceiling in the darkness, there's this gnawing sensation in your gut that something isn't right? Why is it that despite all your activity, despite all your busyness, despite the fact that your calendar is full and your days are packed, you still feel like you're standing still? Why do you feel like you're running on a treadmill, sweating, working, expending enormous amounts of energy, but never actually moving forward? Picture this image clearly in your mind. You're in a gym. You step onto the treadmill. You set the speed. You start running. Your heart rate increases. Sweat begins to bead on your forehead. Your breathing becomes labored. Your muscles burn. You're working hard, genuinely hard. Anyone watching you would see someone who is putting in effort, someone who is committed, someone who is trying. After 30 minutes, after an hour, you're exhausted. You step off the machine completely drained. But here's the problem. You look around and you're in the exact same place you started. The treadmill has moved beneath your feet, but you haven't gone anywhere. You haven't traveled a single inch toward any meaningful destination. All that effort, all that sweat, all that work, and zero progress toward where you actually want to be. This is the modern condition. This is the life of millions of people who wake up every day, go through their routines, check their boxes, fulfill their obligations, and collapse into bed exhausted, only to wake up and do it all over again. They are moving, but they are not progressing. They are busy, but they are not building anything of lasting value. They are expending energy, but that energy is scattered, diffused, directionless. The treadmill is a perfect metaphor for a life without direction. It creates the illusion of progress. It feels like you're doing something meaningful, but it's all contained, all circular, all ultimately going nowhere. And the most tragic part? Many people don't even realize they're on a treadmill until years have passed.
They wake up at 40, 50, or 60 years old and suddenly realize that despite all their activity, they haven't actually moved toward anything meaningful. They've been busy, but they haven't been purposeful. They've been active.
Now, we need to be very careful here, because when most people read the word perish, they think it means physical death. They think it means to die, to cease to exist, to have your life ended. And while that's certainly one meaning of the word, it's not what's being communicated here. The word perish in the Hebrew here is para. And when you dig into the original language, when you study what this word actually meant in its original context, you discover something far more nuanced and in some ways far more disturbing than simple physical death. Para doesn't just mean to die physically, it means to cast off restraint. It means to run wild. It means to live without discipline, without boundaries, without any governing principles. This is critical to understand because it reveals that the kind of perishing being described here isn't primarily about the end of your biological life. It's about what happens to a person who has no clear vision, no defined purpose, no compelling future that they're building toward. When you have no vision, you don't suddenly...
So, what's the solution? How do you escape this terrifying pattern of perishing? How do you stop the dissolution and start building something with definition, something with purpose, something that will outlast your physical life? The answer is simultaneously simple and incredibly difficult. To get what you want, you must first define what you want. This seems obvious, doesn't it? Almost too obvious to state. And yet, the vast majority of people never do it. They spend more time planning a 2-week vacation than they spend defining what they actually want out of their entire life. They put more thought into choosing a restaurant for dinner than into choosing the direction of their career. They research which phone to buy more thoroughly than they consider what legacy they want to leave. Why? Because defining what you want is hard. It requires you to think. It requires you to choose. It requires you to differentiate yourself from the crowd and say, this is what matters to me, even if it doesn't matter to everyone else. Most people avoid this difficulty by staying vague. They say they want to be successful without defining what success means to them. They say they want to be happy without identifying what brings them authentic joy versus temporary pleasure. They say they want to make a difference without specifying what difference they want to make or for whom. This vagueness feels safe because it allows you to avoid commitment. If you never clearly define what you want, then you never have to face the possibility that you might not achieve it. You can always tell yourself that you're still figuring it out, still exploring, still keeping your options open. But here's the hard truth. Vagueness is not freedom. Vagueness is prison. When everything is possible, nothing is probable. When you're open to everything, you commit to nothing. And when you commit to nothing, you achieve nothing of lasting significance. You must collapse the infinite possibilities of your life into one singular point of focus. Think about light for a moment. Diffused light fills a room, but it doesn't have much power. It allows you to see, but it doesn't create anything. But take that same light and focus it, concentrate it, narrow it down to a laser beam, and suddenly it can cut through steel. The same energy, but concentrated instead of diffused. This is what happens when you define your vision. You take all the potential energy of your life, all your time, your talents, your resources, your attention, and you focus it. You point it in a specific direction. You concentrate it on a specific target. This requires what I call the collapse of infinite possibility. Right now, your life contains infinite possibilities. You could theoretically do anything. You could become a doctor, or an artist, or an entrepreneur, or a teacher. You could live in any city. You could pursue any interest. You could develop any skill. The options are endless. And that sounds liberating, doesn't it? Infinite possibility sounds like ultimate freedom, but it's not. It's paralysis. Because when everything is equally possible, you have no basis for making decisions. Every choice is arbitrary. Every path is just as valid as any other. So you either freeze, unable to choose, or you choose randomly, following whatever seems appealing in the moment or whatever external voice is loudest. True freedom doesn't come from infinite options. True freedom comes from choosing one option and giving yourself completely to it. It comes from collapsing all those possibilities into one clear, defined, compelling vision, and then organizing your entire life.
Before we go any further, I need you to stop, right now. Stop reading for just 30 seconds and confront yourself with a question that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. I want you to ask yourself right now, if God answered your prayer for success tomorrow, would you even know what it looks like? Seriously, think about it. Pray about it. Let the question sit uncomfortably in your spirit. You've probably asked God for success. Most people have. You've prayed for blessing, for favor, for breakthrough, for your time to come. You've asked Him to open doors, to make a way, to bring increase into your life. But if He actually did it, if tomorrow morning you woke up and God had answered that prayer, what would it look like? How would you know? What specific, tangible changes would be present in your life that would cause you to recognize, this is it. This is the success I asked for. Can you answer that question with clarity and specificity? Or does your mind go blank? Or worse, do you start listing vague generalities like, I would be happy, or I would feel fulfilled, or I wouldn't have to worry about money? Or is your definition of success vague? I want to be rich. Okay, what does rich mean? Rich compared to whom? By what standard? Is it a specific net worth, a specific annual income, a specific lifestyle, freedom from debt, the ability to give generously? Or is rich just an undefined sense of having enough, which conveniently always seems to be slightly more than you currently have? I want to be happy. Beautiful sentiment, but what creates happiness for you? What specific experiences, relationships, accomplishments, or states of being generate authentic joy in your life? What are the conditions under which you thrive? What environments, activities, and people bring out the best version of you? Or is happy just the absence of your current problems? Because that's not a vision, that's just escapism. And if happiness is just not having my current problems, then what happens when those problems are solved and new ones inevitably arise? Will you still be happy? Or will happiness always be something you're chasing but never actually experiencing? Do you see the problem? These vague desires feel like goals. They sound like vision, but they're not. They're just fuzzy feelings that can never be satisfied because they can never be achieved. You can't achieve vague. You can't accomplish ambiguous. You can't complete undefined. God cannot bless a blur.
Let's unpack this, because it directly contradicts much of what modern culture tells us about success and fulfillment. Our culture celebrates the wide path. It celebrates keeping your options open. It celebrates having it all. It celebrates people who refuse to limit themselves, who want to experience everything, who resist commitment and specialization because they don't want to miss out on anything. But Jesus says that path, the wide, inclusive, option-rich path that welcomes everyone and excludes nothing, leads to destruction. Not because there's anything morally wrong with the individual elements on that path, but because a path without boundaries, without definition, without exclusion, is ultimately a path that goes nowhere. The wide gate is the life of distraction. Picture the wide gate. It's easy to find. You can't miss it. It's massive, welcoming, accessible.
There's room for everyone and everything. You can bring all your baggage through this gate. You don't have to leave anything behind. You don't have to make any hard choices about what to keep and what to discard. Through this gate, you can pursue every interest, chase every opportunity, maintain every relationship, say yes to every invitation. There's no pressure to choose, no requirement to commit, no need to exclude anything. And millions of people are streaming through this gate. It's crowded, it's popular, it's the path that everyone seems to be on. Your friends are there, your family is there. Society affirms this path. Culture celebrates this path. It is the life of the drifter. The drifter looks busy. They're always doing something. Their calendar is full. They have multiple projects going on, multiple friend groups, multiple interests, multiple potential career directions. From the outside, it looks like they're really living, really experiencing life to the fullest. But watch them over time, track them over years, and you'll notice something. They never actually build anything of lasting significance. They start things but don't finish them. They explore options but never commit to one. They accumulate experiences but never develop mastery. They know a lot of people but have few deep relationships. They've tried many things but excelled at none. They're drifting, moving with the current, going wherever the wind blows, responding to whatever opportunity or distraction presents itself. And they tell themselves this is freedom, this is living life on their own terms, this is refusing to be boxed in. But it's not freedom, it's the opposite of freedom. Because they're not directing their life, they're being directed by every external force, every trend, every passing interest, every other person's agenda. It is the life where you try to be everything to everyone. This is particularly devastating in our hyper-connected age. You're trying to be a good employee, good entrepreneur, good parent, good spouse, good friend, good son or daughter, good church member, good community volunteer, good fitness enthusiast, good hobbyist, good social media presence, good everything to everyone.
This is perhaps the most painful cut of all, and it's where most people hesitate and ultimately fail to commit to the narrow path. Let me be very clear about what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. I'm not saying you should be cruel to people. I'm not saying you should burn bridges or create enemies. I'm not saying that every friendship needs to be transactional or that people only have value if they advance your goals. What I am saying is this: you become like the people you spend the most time with. This is not opinion. This is observable reality, documented across psychology, sociology, and neuroscience. Your thoughts, your habits, your values, your aspirations, they're all profoundly influenced by your peer group. Show me your 5 closest friends, and I'll show you your future. If your closest friends are undisciplined, you will struggle with discipline. If your closest friends are cynical, you will struggle with hope. If your closest friends have no vision, you will struggle to maintain yours. This doesn't make them bad people, but it might make them the wrong people for this season of your life if you're serious about pursuing a specific vision. Some friendships need to be released, not with drama or accusation, but with love and honesty. Some relationships need to transition from deep friendship to friendly acquaintance. Some people who have had significant access to your time and energy need to have that access reduced, not because they've done anything wrong, but because you're building something specific, and you need to surround yourself with people who support, challenge, and elevate that vision. This feels harsh because we've been taught that loyalty means never changing, never creating boundaries, always being available to everyone who has ever been in our life. But that's not loyalty. That's fear of disappointing people. True loyalty is being faithful to your calling. even when it requires difficult conversations and uncomfortable transitions. You cut away the habits that don't serve the vision. Every habit you have is either building the person you want to become or building someone else. There's no neutral ground. Every repeated action is casting a vote for a type of person. When you gain clarity about your vision, many of your current habits will suddenly be revealed as incompatible with that vision. The late-night scrolling, the mindless snacking, the perpetual complaining, the consumption without creation, the entertainment binging, the substance dependency, the conflict avoidance, the people-pleasing, the procrastination. These habits didn't seem like a big deal when you had no clear vision because there was nothing to compare them against. But now, with a plain, written, specific vision of who you're becoming, these habits stand out in stark contrast. They're obviously not building that future person. They're obviously consuming resources that could be invested in your vision. So they have to go, not through shame or self-hatred, but through clear-eyed recognition that you can't carry these habits with you through the narrow gate. They won't fit, and attempting to maintain them while also pursuing your vision will split your energy and guarantee mediocrity in both. It is painful to cut, but it is necessary to grow. Every gardener understands this principle. Every farmer knows this reality. Growth requires cutting. Jesus used this exact metaphor. John 15, verse 2. Every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. Read that carefully. He's not talking about dead branches here. He's not talking about obviously diseased or damaged parts of the plant. He's talking about branches that are already bearing fruit. Why would you prune a branch that's producing? Why would you cut away something that's working? Because the goal isn't just fruit. The goal is more fruit, maximum fruit, the fullest expression of what this plant is capable of producing. And to get there, even good branches sometimes need to be cut, because they're consuming nutrients and energy that could be directed to even more productive parts of the plant, because they're creating shade that blocks sunlight from reaching other branches, because they're taking up space that limits the plant's overall capacity. This is a profound truth about human development. You are not stuck because you are incapable. You are stuck because you are overgrown. Think about that. Most people who feel stuck assume they're stuck because they lack something. They lack talent.
We need to pause here and address something specific to our current moment in history, because the challenge of maintaining vision and focus has never been more difficult than it is right now. You are living in an attention economy. Your focus, your awareness, your mental energy, these are the most valuable commodities in the modern world. And there is an entire industry worth hundreds of billions of dollars that exists solely to capture and monetize your attention. Every app on your phone is designed by teams of psychologists, neuroscientists, and user experience experts whose full-time job is to make that app as addictive as possible. Not as useful as possible, not as valuable as possible, as addictive as possible. Because their business model requires your attention, and they are competing with every other app for that finite resource. The algorithm doesn't care about your vision. It doesn't care about your goals. It doesn't care about who you're trying to become. It cares about one thing: keeping you on the platform as long as possible so they can serve you more ads. And it's very, very good at this job. The algorithm knows you better than you know yourself in many ways.
It knows what makes you angry, what makes you laugh, what makes you anxious, what makes you aroused, what makes you feel superior, what makes you feel inadequate. And it feeds you a carefully curated stream of content designed to trigger those emotions, because emotional arousal keeps you scrolling. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is their stated business model. This is how they make money, and it works extraordinarily well. The average person now spends over 7 hours per day on screens. 7 hours. That's more time than they spend sleeping, more time than they spend with family, more time than they spend on any other single activity. And what are they doing during those 7 hours? Are they learning? Are they creating? Are they building toward a vision? Occasionally, yes, but mostly they're consuming, passively receiving whatever content the algorithm determines will keep them engaged. This is the modern expression of casting off restraint. This is what pariah looks like in the digital age. You don't consciously decide to waste 7 hours, but you pick up your phone to check one thing, and suddenly an hour has passed. You're going to watch one video, but the autoplay feature queues up the next one, and the next one, and suddenly it's midnight and you haven't done any of the things you told yourself you would do today. If you're serious about pursuing a vision, if you're committed to the narrow path, you must recognize that your phone is one of the primary tools the wide path uses to keep you distracted. Not because technology is evil, it's not, but because the way these platforms are designed is fundamentally incompatible with focused, intentional, vision-driven living. You cannot write the vision while scrolling Instagram. You cannot run toward your purpose while binge-watching Netflix. You cannot build something meaningful while giving your best hours, your clearest thinking, your prime energy to passively consuming content that you won't even remember tomorrow. This requires radical action, not someday, now. You need to delete apps, set boundaries, create friction between yourself and mindless consumption, turn off notifications, establish phone-free hours, designate creation time that's protected from the siren song of the algorithm. Will this make you weird? Yes. Will your friends think you're being extreme? Probably. Will you feel like you're missing out? Absolutely. But here's the question. Would you rather miss out on the endless stream of content that everyone else is consuming, or miss out on becoming who you're meant to become? Because you can't have both. The narrow gate won't allow it.
Now, we need to address something that the secular productivity world often misses: the source of vision. The modern approach to goal setting treats it as entirely self-generated. You sit down, you think about what you want, you set goals based on your desires, your values, your assessment of what's possible. It's all internally driven, all self-determined. And there's nothing wrong with that approach as far as it goes, but it doesn't go far enough, because it assumes that you are the ultimate authority on what your life should be about, what you should build, what you should become. The biblical perspective is different. It suggests that true vision, the kind of vision that leads to life rather than destruction, comes from beyond yourself. It's received more than invented. It's discovered more than decided. Look again at the Habakkuk verse. Habakkuk 2:2. And the Lord answered me and said, write the vision. Notice who's speaking. The Lord, God. The vision that Habakkuk is being told to write down isn't something he came up with on his own. It's something God gave him. It's a divine download, a revelation of what God intended to do. This is the pattern throughout Scripture. Abraham didn't decide to become the father of many nations. God told him that's what he would become, and Abraham's job was to believe it and act on it. Moses didn't decide to deliver the Israelites from Egypt. God appeared to him in a burning bush and commissioned him. David didn't decide to be king. The prophet Samuel showed up and anointed him while he was still a teenager watching sheep. Over and over, we see this pattern. God reveals purpose,
and humans respond by aligning their lives with that revealed purpose. This doesn't mean you sit around passively waiting for a divine telegram to arrive. God gave you a mind, creativity, desires, talents, and He expects you to use them. The process of discovering your vision involves active seeking, trying things, paying attention to what gives you energy versus what drains you, noticing what you're naturally good at, identifying problems you're uniquely positioned to solve. But underneath all that active exploration should be a posture of listening, a willingness to receive direction that might surprise you, that might be bigger than what you would have chosen for yourself, that might require more faith than you currently possess. Because here's the thing about self-generated vision: it's limited by your current level of thinking. It's bounded by what you currently believe is possible. It's shaped by your fears, your insecurities, your past failures. But God-given vision transcends those limitations. It calls you to become someone you're not currently capable of being. It requires growth, transformation, faith. It's often initially uncomfortable precisely because it doesn't fit your current self-concept. When God told Abraham he would be the father of many nations, Abraham was childless, and his wife was past childbearing age. The vision didn't make sense based on current circumstances. It required faith. When God told Moses to confront Pharaoh and demand the release of the Israelites, Moses was a fugitive with a speech impediment. The vision seemed absurd based on his qualifications. It required faith. When God told Mary she would give birth to the Messiah, she was an unmarried virgin, in a culture where that could get her killed. The vision was dangerous and scandalous. It required faith. This is the nature of divine vision. It always requires you to become more than you currently are. It always stretches you beyond your comfort zone. It always demands faith in something beyond what you can see or control. And this is actually a gift, not a burden, because self-generated vision, while safer and more comfortable, is also more limited. It keeps you in the realm of what you know is achievable. It rarely calls you to true greatness, because true greatness, by definition, requires stepping beyond your current capacity. So when you sit down to write your vision, yes, engage your mind. Use wisdom. Be strategic. Set specific, measurable goals. Do all the practical things the modern world teaches about goal setting. But also pray. Ask God to reveal His purpose for your life. Pay attention to those nudges, those recurring thoughts, those opportunities that seem to appear from nowhere. Be open to a vision that's bigger and more challenging than what you would choose for yourself. Because the vision you generate from your limited perspective.
Having a written, plain vision is essential, but it's not sufficient. Because you don't live your life in one moment of clarity. You live it in thousands of small moments, daily decisions, recurring situations where the vision is not top of mind. This is where most people fail. They have a moment of clarity, they write the vision, they feel inspired, and then they go back to their regular life and slowly, imperceptibly, drift back into old patterns. Why? Because inspiration fades, clarity diminishes, the urgent crowds out the important, the algorithm beckons, the comfort zone calls, and without a practice of daily realignment, you lose connection with the vision. This is why the verse says to write the vision upon tables in a place where you'll see it regularly. The vision must be present, not just recorded and filed away. You need a daily practice of reconnecting with your vision. This doesn't have to be complicated or time-consuming, but it does have to be consistent. Here's a simple framework. Morning review. Read your written vision, visualize yourself living it. Identify the 3 most important actions you could take today that would move you toward that vision, and commit to doing those 3 things before you do anything else. This morning review serves several functions. It reminds you of what you're building before the day's distractions hit. It aligns your daily actions with your long-term vision. It helps you distinguish between what's urgent and what's actually important. It gives you a filter for evaluating all the requests, opportunities, and distractions that will come your way during the day.
Evening reflection. Review your day honestly. Did you do the 3 critical actions you identified? What pulled you off course? What worked well? What needs to adjust tomorrow? This evening reflection creates a feedback loop. You're not just making a plan and hoping for the best. You're measuring actual results against intended results and making adjustments based on real data. Most people never do this. They don't measure, they don't track, they don't honestly assess whether their daily actions are aligning with their stated vision. And then they wonder why years later they've made so little progress. You can't manage what you don't measure, and you can't stay aligned with what you don't regularly review. We live in a culture of instant gratification. You want food? It's delivered in 30 minutes. You want entertainment? Infinite options at your fingertips. You want information? Google has it in 0.3 seconds. You want connection? Send a text. You want validation? Post on social media and watch the likes roll in. Everything is optimized for immediate satisfaction, and this has rewired our brains in profound ways. We've become addicted to instant results. We've lost the capacity for delayed gratification. We've lost the ability to work towards something for years without seeing immediate payoff. But vision, real, meaningful, world-changing vision, operates on a completely different timeline. The things worth building take time. They require sustained effort over months and years. They demand that you do things today that won't pay off until tomorrow, next year, next decade. This is fundamentally at odds with how we've been conditioned to operate, and it's why so many people start strong and then fade. They have a moment of clarity, they set a vision, they start working toward it. But after a few weeks or months, when the vision still feels far away, when the daily grind starts to feel tedious, they lose motivation. They start to wonder, is this even working? Should I try something else? Maybe I picked the wrong vision. Maybe I should keep my options open. Maybe I'm missing out on other opportunities. And slowly, imperceptibly, they drift back toward the wide path, back toward instant gratification, back toward the algorithm, back toward consuming instead of creating, back toward perishing instead of building. You must understand the time will pass anyway. This is crucial. Whether you pursue your vision or not, 5 years from now will arrive. 10 years from now will arrive. The time will pass regardless. The only question is, what will you have built during that time? If you maintain focus, if you stay aligned with your vision, if you do the daily work even when it's not exciting, even when progress seems slow, even when no one is watching or applauding, in 5 years, you'll have something substantial. You'll have skills developed, relationships built, systems created, value delivered, a body of work that compounds. But if you chase instant gratification, if you keep your options open, if you drift with the culture, if you consume more than you create, in 5 years, you'll be in roughly the same place you are now. Maybe the details will be different, but the fundamental trajectory will be unchanged. The time passes anyway. What you build during that time is your choice.
Let's be brutally honest about what this clarity costs. Because the narrow path isn't called narrow because it's easy. It's narrow because it demands sacrifice. You will lose friends. Not all of them, but some. Some people in your life right now are there because of proximity, convenience, or shared past experiences, not because they support where you're going. When you change, when you grow, when you start saying no to things they expect you to say yes to, some people won't understand. Some will be offended. Some will drift away. This hurts, but it's necessary. You will miss out on experiences. While your peers are traveling, partying, binge-watching the latest series, you'll be working on your vision. You'll be developing skills, building systems, creating value. This creates FOMO, fear of missing out. You'll see their posts and wonder if you're being too serious, too focused, too rigid. But remember,
They're building memorable experiences. You're building a memorable life. You will face criticism. People are comfortable with you as you are. When you start changing, start pursuing a specific vision, start saying no to their expectations, they'll often resist. They'll tell you you're being unrealistic, that you've changed, that you're not fun anymore, that you should be more balanced, that you're taking this too seriously. Most of this criticism comes from their own insecurity about not having a vision, not from genuine concern for you. You will doubt yourself. There will be moments, many moments, when you question whether this is worth it, when progress seems slow, when obstacles seem insurmountable, when you're tired and the comfort of the wide path looks appealing. This is normal. This is part of the process. The question is whether you'll let the doubt stop you or whether you'll acknowledge it and keep moving anyway. You will have to delay gratification. The money you could spend on experiences, you'll invest in your vision. The time you could use for entertainment, you'll use for development. The energy you could expend on social obligations, you'll direct toward your purpose. This requires a level of discipline that most people are unwilling to maintain. These costs are real. I won't minimize them. The narrow path is called narrow for a reason. But here's what you gain. You gain clarity. You know who you are and where you're going. This is rare and valuable. You gain progress. You're actually building something, not just consuming and surviving. You gain competence. By focusing deeply on specific skills and domains, you develop genuine mastery instead of surface-level familiarity with many things. You gain confidence, not the fake confidence of arrogance, but the real confidence that comes from doing hard things, keeping promises to yourself, and seeing actual results from sustained effort. You gain legacy. You're building something that outlasts you, something that creates value for others, something that matters beyond your immediate gratification. The wide path offers immediate comfort and long-term regret. The narrow path offers immediate discomfort and long-term fulfillment. Choose wisely. Enough philosophy. Let's get practical. How do you actually write a vision that's clear enough to run with? Here's a framework. Step 1. Temporal positioning. Choose a specific point in the future, not someday, not eventually, a specific date. I recommend December 31st, 2029, because it's far enough to be transformational, but close enough to feel real. Example, December 31, 2029. Step 2. Dimensional description. Describe that future day in multiple dimensions of life. Don't just focus on career or wealth. Cover professional, financial, physical, relational, spiritual, impact. Specificity over vagueness. For each dimension, get specific. Numbers, names, details. Not, I'm financially stable, but I have $500,000 in investments, zero debt, and generate $250,000 annually through my business.
We've covered a lot of ground. Let me bring it all together. You feel stuck because you haven't defined where you're going. The modern world calls this goal setting. The Bible calls it vision. And without vision, people perish, not physically, but spiritually and purposefully. They cast off restraint. They dissolve into noise. They become indistinct. The solution is to write the vision and make it plain, to collapse infinite possibility into focused purpose, to choose the narrow path that requires exclusion, cutting away everything that doesn't serve what you're building. This is hard. It costs. It requires sacrifice and discipline. It means saying no to the wide path that everyone else is on. but it's the only path that leads to life, real life, meaningful life, abundant life that doesn't perish. The choice before you is simple. Continue as you are, busy but directionless, moving but not progressing, surviving but not thriving, and watch the years dissolve into a blur of consumed content, unfulfilled potential, and deep regret. Or choose clarity. Define your vision specifically, write it plainly, commit to it fully, cut away everything that doesn't align, say no to the wide path, embrace the narrow gate, do the daily work of realignment, build something meaningful over years, not days. One path is easier today and devastating tomorrow. One path is harder today and fulfilling tomorrow.
Let's address the potential obstacles. What will try to stop you? Let me be honest about what you'll face when you commit to this path, because if you're not prepared for the obstacles, you'll interpret them as signs that you're on the wrong path, rather than recognizing them as confirmation that you're on the right one. Obstacle 1. The dip. This is the period, usually a few weeks or months in, when the initial inspiration has worn off, but the results haven't yet materialized. You've done the work of writing your vision, you've started making changes, you've cut some things away, you're doing your daily disciplines, but you don't look different yet. Your bank account hasn't changed dramatically. People haven't noticed your transformation. The vision still feels far away. This is where most people quit. They think, this isn't working. I'm doing all the right things, but nothing's changing. Maybe I picked the wrong vision. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. But here's what you need to understand. The results lag behind the actions, always. When you plant a seed, you don't see a tree the next day. You see dirt. For weeks, you see dirt. If you didn't know better, you'd think nothing was happening. But beneath the surface, invisible to your eyes, roots are forming, systems are developing, the foundation for future growth is being established. Your vision works the same way. The daily disciplines you're doing today are creating infrastructure that won't be visible for months. The habits you're building are compound investments that won't pay off immediately. The skills you're developing are assets that will appreciate over time. You must trust the process during the dip. You must keep doing the daily work even when you can't yet see the results, because the alternative, quitting during the dip, guarantees you'll never see the results. Obstacle 2. Social pressure. When you change, you implicitly challenge everyone around you who isn't changing. Your new boundaries, your new priorities, your new focus, all of it holds up a mirror to the people in your life who are still on the wide path, and most of them won't like what they see. They'll try to pull you back, not usually with overt sabotage, but with subtle pressure. You're not fun anymore. Remember when you used to just relax? Why are you being so intense about this? You've changed. Don't you think you're taking this too seriously? You need balance. All of these statements are attempts to get you to return to the comfortable, predictable version of yourself that didn't challenge them. You must recognize this for what it is, their discomfort with their lack of vision projecting onto your pursuit of yours. Maintain your boundaries with love, but without apology. You don't need to defend your vision to people who don't have one. You don't need to explain yourself to people who aren't running toward anything. You don't need permission from people who are perishing to pursue life. Obstacle 3. Imposter syndrome. As you start making progress toward your vision, as you start becoming someone different than you've been, a voice will emerge. Who do you think you are? You're not qualified for this. You're going to be exposed as a fraud. You don't deserve this success. This voice is lying,
but it's convincing because it sounds like wisdom, like humility, like realism. Here's the truth. No one feels qualified for their vision when they first receive it. Abraham didn't feel qualified to father nations. Moses didn't feel qualified to confront Pharaoh. David didn't feel qualified to be king. Mary didn't feel qualified to mother the Messiah. The vision isn't given to you because you're already qualified. It's given to you so that pursuing it will make you qualified. The person you need to become to fulfill your vision doesn't exist yet. That's the point. The pursuit of the vision creates that person. So when imposter syndrome whispers, "You're not qualified," the correct response is, "Not yet, but I'm becoming."
Obstacle 4. Decision fatigue. As you pursue your vision, you'll face countless decisions. Every opportunity that comes your way requires evaluation. Every request for your time requires consideration. Every new possibility requires assessment against your vision. This is exhausting. And when you're exhausted, when your decision-making capacity is depleted, you're most vulnerable to making choices that don't align with your vision. You'll say yes to things you should say no to, not because you've reconsidered your priorities, but because you're too tired to maintain your boundaries. The solution is to make as many decisions as possible in advance when you're clear-headed and energized. Create rules, not just goals. For example, I don't take meetings before 10 a.m. because that's my creation time. Or I don't do unpaid consulting for people I don't have a prior relationship with. Or I don't attend social events on weeknights during the work week. Or I don't scroll social media before I've completed my 3 critical actions. These aren't rigid rules that never change. They're pre-made decisions that preserve your decision-making capacity for the truly important choices that can't be automated. Obstacle 5. Success. This might surprise you, but success is often more dangerous to your vision than failure. When you fail, you know you need to adjust. Failure provides clear feedback. It's painful, but it's clarifying. But when you succeed, when money starts flowing, when opportunities multiply, when people start recognizing you, new dangers emerge. You start getting offers that don't align with your vision but are lucrative. You start getting invited to things that would distract from your focus but would boost your ego. You start getting pulled in directions that feel like upgrades but are actually departures from your core purpose. Success creates options, and options create the temptation to drift from your vision toward whatever seems most immediately rewarding. This is why you must regularly return to your written vision, not just when things are hard, but especially when things are good. Success must be filtered through your vision just as much as failure, maybe more so, because success is more seductive. Here's something beautiful that happens when you pursue a clear vision with discipline and focus. You don't just change your own life, you change the lives of everyone connected to you. Your family sees what it looks like to live on purpose. Your children, current or future, inherit a model of intentional living rather than aimless drifting. Your spouse is inspired by your commitment and often begins pursuing their own vision more seriously. Your friends who are ready for more than the wide path see an alternative. They see that it's possible to live differently, to build something meaningful, to resist the culture's pull toward perpetual consumption and distraction. Your clients or customers or students or audience receive value that wouldn't exist if you hadn't clarified and pursued your vision. The thing you're building, whatever it is, serves people. It solves problems. It creates beauty. It adds value to the world. This is the multiplication effect. One person with clear vision doesn't just build one life, they influence dozens, hundreds, potentially thousands of lives. Because vision is contagious, purpose is attractive. When people encounter someone who knows who they are and where they're going, it awakens something in them. This is why the enemy of your soul works so hard to keep you distracted, scattered, unfocused.
It's not just about you. It's about everyone you would influence if you stepped into your full purpose. Every person living below their potential isn't just robbing themselves, they're robbing everyone who would benefit from their full expression. When you write your vision, when you commit to the narrow path, when you do the daily work of alignment, you're not just changing your story, you're changing your family's story, your community's story, potentially history's story. This is the weight and glory of vision. It matters more than you think.
Let me address the question I know many of you are asking. This all sounds good, but I'm not ready yet. I need to get my life together first. I need to finish this other thing. I need to wait until circumstances are more favorable. I need to gain more clarity before I commit. These thoughts feel like wisdom, but they're usually fear dressed up as prudence. The truth is, you will never feel fully ready. There will never be a perfect time. Circumstances will never be ideal. You will never have complete clarity before you start. Moses had every excuse to wait. He was old. He had a speech impediment. He was a fugitive. He had no credibility with his own people. The most powerful empire on earth was his opponent. If anyone had a right to say the timing isn't right, it was Moses. But God said, "Go, now, with what you have, where you are." Gideon was the youngest in his family, from the weakest clan in his tribe, hiding from enemies when God called him. If anyone had a right to say, "I need to get stronger first, build more resources, wait until I'm more qualified," it was Gideon. But God said, "Go, now, with what you have, where you are." Mary was a teenager, unmarried, with no resources or social standing. If anyone had a right to say, "This is terrible timing, let me get married first, get established, wait until I'm older and more capable," it was Mary. But God said, "Yes, now, with what you have, where you are." The pattern is consistent. God calls people who aren't ready, in situations that aren't ideal, at times that don't make sense, because if we waited until we felt ready, we'd never move. You start with what you have, where you are, who you are today, not who you'll be in 5 years, not with the resources you hope to have someday, not when everything is figured out. You write the vision today with your current level of clarity. You can always refine it later, but a rough vision that you're acting on beats a perfect vision that you're waiting to develop. You start taking aligned action today, even if it's small. You can scale up later, but small, consistent action beats massive, inconsistent action every time. You make changes today in your schedule, your habits, your relationships, your priorities. You can make more changes later, but some change today beats perfect change eventually. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. You've already lost years to drift, distraction, lack of vision. Don't lose more by waiting for the perfect moment to start. Start now, imperfectly, with what you have, where you are. We've reached the end of this examination of vision, purpose, and the narrow path, but it's not really the end. It's a beginning, if you choose to make it one. Everything we've discussed is theoretical until you do something with it. You can agree with every word, nod along to every principle, resonate with every example, and still change nothing about how you actually live. Or you can make a different choice. Right now, in this moment, you have an opportunity that you may never have again with this same clarity. You can decide to stop perishing, to stop dissolving into the noise, to stop running on the treadmill of perpetual motion without progress. You can decide to write the vision,
to make it plain, to commit to the narrow path, to do the daily work of alignment, to build something meaningful over years instead of consuming distractions over decades. This requires a decision, not just a feeling, not just an intention, not just, "I should probably do something about this," but a firm, clear, committed decision. I am going to define my vision, write it plainly, and organize my life around it, starting today. Here's what I want you to do right now. Stop reading. Get a blank piece of paper or open a blank document. Set a timer for 30 minutes and answer these questions. 1. 5 years from today, what would make you look back and say, "That was time well spent"? Be specific, not vague desires, but concrete realities. 2. What would you be doing for work, purpose? What value would you be creating? Who would you be serving? 3. What would your relationships look like? Who would be in your life? How would those relationships function? 4. What would your health, body look like? What would you be capable of physically? 5. What would your spiritual life look like? How would you be engaging with God? What practices would characterize your faith? 6. What would your financial reality be? Specific numbers, income, net worth, freedom level. Write it all down in present tense with specifics. This is your first draft of your vision. Then, tomorrow morning, read it. Does it move you? Does it inspire you? Does it feel true to who you're meant to become? If yes, you have your vision. Write it plainly. Make it visible. Start running. If no, refine it, but don't overthink it. Better to start with a clear enough vision that you adjust over time than to wait for perfect clarity that never comes. The treadmill is always there, ready to keep you running in place. The wide gate is always open, welcoming you to the life of comfortable perishing. The algorithm is always ready to feed you content designed to keep you consuming instead of creating. The noise is always ready to drown out the voice of your calling. These forces won't go away. They will be present for the rest of your life. The question is whether you'll have a vision strong enough to resist them. Proverbs 29:18, "Where there is no vision, the people perish, but he that keepeth the law, happy is he." Without vision, you perish. With vision and faithful obedience to how life is designed to work, you find happiness, real, sustainable, meaningful happiness. Habakkuk 2:2, "And the Lord answered me and said, Write the vision, and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it." Write it, make it plain, then run. Not someday, not when you feel ready, not when circumstances are ideal. Today, now, with what you have, where you are. The time will pass anyway. 5 years from now will arrive whether you build toward it intentionally or drift toward it accidentally. What will you have built? Who will you have become? What impact will you have made? The choice is yours. The moment is now. Write the vision.